Welcome, everybody, to the Making Awesome podcast. This is episode 164, where we're going to follow up on my talk at the 1440 Makers all about makers making a living, or I think it should have been called Makers Making Money, but I get it. Makers Making a Living is a more fun way to say it, if if you say. Victoria's here with me. We're going to be hanging out, and just so everybody is aware, this is going to be the last episode for 2 weeks. Next week being American Thanksgiving, and then the week after that is Smurf, which we should hopefully be live streaming for, but who knows? We're going to certainly try to be streaming there when we can, because for those that don't know, this is also the last podcast, if you are watching live, where I'm going to have hair. We are going to be shaving my head at the Sanjay Mortimer Rap Festival, with every penny going to the Sanjay Mortimer Foundation. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I am excited for that, and if I can figure out the right system and the right way to do it, because I don't yet know the right way to do it, but if I can figure out the right way to do it, we are going to be streaming like a proper streaming setup at Smurf, which should be a lot of fun. Normally, to run a camera that isn't static and a laptop, you need more than one person to do it. So I don't know what the plan is there, but we're going to work on that. You'll try to figure it out, because I would like it to be on our channel as well, so you guys can watch and then donate to Smurf. But yeah, that's going to be a thing. We're going to be shaving my head for charity. We're going to be cutting off my hair for the Little Princess Trust, which is a wig-making charity in the UK. And then whatever is remaining, we are going to cut and shave for the top few donors. I don't know how many, but the top few donors will be able to shave whatever they want into my hair. And that is hopefully going to get people opening their wallets to obtain some advertising space on my head. And so every video that we film that next day on Sunday is going to be with my crazy screwed up hair. But hey, it is all about raising money for charity, and that's what I care about. So that's not a thing for me to make a living off of, right? I'm not going to make a dime from it. In fact, I think that haircut's going to cost me a bunch of money because, well, there are some issues with now having to go to a barber. Now I have to care about my hair. So, always an interesting one. But, yeah, it's going to be a fun journey. So tune in and let's just dive into it. Let's just dive into makers making a living here, makers making money. So yesterday, or for those of you that are listening audio only, last week, I was on the 1440 Makers stream, which is a 24-hour live stream. I was on a panel at noon with some awesome people, including Joel Telling, the 3D printing nerd, Dave Randolph from Printed Solid, Ellie Weinstein from Cocoa Press, and Chris from 3D Printopia. I think that was everybody. I feel like that was everybody. Hope I didn't miss anybody. Of course, Shane and Krusty Practical Printing were there as well. And yeah, we had a good show, but we talked all about makers making a living, and we had some fun experiences there where we ended up talking a lot about the problems that businesses have and the things that you didn't expect that would cost a ton of money. For Ellie, her shipping issue where, because the boxes have branding on them, UPS isn't going to pay out a dime, or whoever she used for her shipping insurance, maybe it was USPS, isn't going to pay out a dime because, oh, you're advertising what's in the box, so you're obviously making it a target. We're not paying out. So, yeah, that's an interesting one. I don't agree with it. I think that that's a really stupid policy, and that's honestly just everything that companies can do to get out of paying for insurance. And as we discussed, the cost of Ellie just shipping out a new kit, if something is stolen, something is lost, whatever, is so much lower than the cost of the insurance for every single one of them, and the BS and the time associated with having to do it all when it does happen. So that was an interesting one. Dave Randolph talked a lot about, taxes and finances and things that you don't think about when you do look to make a living. Joel Telling talked a lot about insurance, where we, kind of joined in, talked about some of the weird challenges with insurance. And, the big joke was if you're under the age of 26, I think it is. Yeah, I think it's 26 where you can still be on your parents' insurance. That is the best time to start a business, because you don't have to pay for your own health insurance, because here in the United States, it's a very heavy expenditure for pricing. And, we talk a lot about things like pricing your time accordingly and, making sure that you adequately quote a job. Says the guy that quoted a job like half of what it should have been. But in my personal defense, each file takes about 3 hours to quote and get working. I have 30 of those files, and I needed to get them a quote in 6 hours. So I gave them a rough estimate. Thankfully, that client is super cool. It's not going to be a problem. But, things like that, where knowing how to quote can really save you here. Looking forward at making a living with making, it is nowhere near as straightforward as a lot of people think. There are so many potential challenges that come in where you can hit a roadblock that, because you didn't adequately prepare for it, it is a hard stop, right? For a lot of businesses, that was human malware, right? No one teaches you to be able to prepare for a shutdown of the economy globally, right? I'm sure they do now, but when I was in school, they certainly didn't. And there was no good way for anybody to prepare unless you had a ton of resources laying around that you were more than happy to burn through, which obviously is not something that most people have. So when we look at the whole making a living, it is not as straightforward as you think. We talked so much about your salary as a full-time or part-time employee with somebody else than what you value your time as a maker. And we realized that a lot of makers don't value their time because other makers don't value their time, right? If I go to make something and I tell you that it takes 20 hours to make, you might say, I can make that in 5 hours. So, okay, do it. And they don't. They don't understand the time and effort and energy that goes into making such a thing. And that's where we have this problem with pricing, where we don't pay attention to the amount of time that is spent doing these projects. We end up losing so much time, that the project itself starts costing you money and you don't realize it. When you first start, you have normally, like a lot of small businesses have the mantra of, if the money is there, we don't care. And while you might say, Grant, that's a great business model, it's not. Because you have to well define what the money means to you, what that looks like, what that is, and why. And if you can't accurately define that, then that's not a business model. That's just I'm going to throw darts at a dartboard in the dark and hope that something actually hits the bullseye. That is not a business plan. A business plan is saying we have a distinct target market, we have a product, this is how we're going to sell it. I specifically talked about the dragons, right? The dragons that everybody wants to buy. They do great at craft shows, but eventually the market is going to get kind of full of them, saturated, if you will. And how selling them for $25 is absolutely ridiculous. Joel jumped in and said it's the reason he doesn't sell on Etsy anymore. Etsy's fees, all the BS involved in it, shipping, the logistics involved with running a company that you don't understand immediately is something that absolutely rips money from that bottom line. And that bottom line is kind of how you make your money. And if you don't have a bottom line left, you are now working for free. Or if you're losing money, your time is worth negative, and you never want to find yourself in that position. It's never a good place to be. Now, with any business, right? I don't care if you have a SaaS business, which is software as a service, or a HaaS business, hardware as a service. You're a service bureau like we are, where we make parts for people. You're a design agency. I don't care what type of business you are. Your business will have an ebb and flow. Times where it's doing great and times where it's not doing great. And looking through the small business subreddit, I see a lot of retail businesses kind of seeing the same thing that we saw. Q3 was great. We had great growth in Q3. Business was doing good. We had good products coming in. Then Q4 hit and just everything evaporated. Now, we have a Hail Mary project we're going through right now for a client, and I am incredibly thankful for it because it is going to make our year. But without that, we might not have been profitable this year. It's one of those weird problems where you can only do so much before the time that you spend ends up grossly outcompeting the money that you bring in. And your value that your time has drops. That is not something that anybody wants to see. But it is a reality that will occur. It is incredibly uncommon that you start a small business and right from the beginning, you are in the 6-7 digits with net profit, right? It's not unheard of. It's not impossible, but it is highly unlikely. So if you look at your business plan and say, I don't see how this can't make money, and you don't have a couple thousand clients lined up that are throwing money at you, you're missing a lot of factors that would absolutely bite you in the butt when it comes to tax time. Because, oh boy, are taxes something that you really, really have problems with. Fun fact. I am not in a high tax bracket. I feel like that's kind of obvious. But even weirder fact, we have a 27.9% tax rate for small businesses. So that means every dollar that we bring in, every single dollar that we bring in, 30 cents of it pretty much goes to somebody else. Normally it's the government. That is a lot of money that if you're not prepared for, come tax time, you're writing a big check that you might have to take out of your savings for. These are things that, while you can be prepared for it, you can't always have it on the top of your mind because your mind is on how to make money, how to make money, how to make money, how to make money. Because taking that thing that you enjoy as a hobby and trying to turn it into a job does take a lot of the fun out of that job. Okay. Or out of that hobby, I should say. Because now all of a sudden, you're not just doing it because you enjoy it. You're doing it because you have to. You're doing it because there is something there to support. And if you have a family and loved ones that are counting on you for a paycheck, this can be mentally taxing. Like, more mentally taxing than you think. And so while it is amazing to be able to make money making, it is also something that should be fundamentally terrifying. Because at that point, every other Friday, there's not a paycheck for you that's guaranteed. You have to earn it. And it's not just by showing up 8 to 5 and doing the few things that you have to do, then leaving. It is waking up in the morning, sitting down at your computer, sitting down at the booth or whatever it is, going into your office, whatever your morning routine is, picking up the phone, getting into emails, starting to do deals. And then it's marketing those deals. And for a lot of making, like, I cannot show you the pieces that we're doing. I really wish I could, because they are really freaking cool. They're going to be really freaking awesome when we get to put them together and we get to see them in full scale. But I won't be able to show you guys for 6 years. And by that time, it's not going to matter anymore, right? You have to remember that the cool projects you can never talk about. And the regular projects are probably not cool enough that you want to talk about them. And so this idea of marketing is actually not as easy as you might think. When we dig into what that looks like for a small business, you have to understand that you have a distinct target market and what exactly you're going for. You know what you need, but a lot of times you can't give it to them. So you could spend all your days building up a social media following, but then you're not spending your days making. So you become a content creator rather than a maker. You could do what I do, where you basically have 2 full-time jobs and you work a ton of hours all the time and it runs you into the ground, but you love it. How long is that sustainable? I don't know. One of those weird ones. But it is something to be concerned about, because it is not as straightforward as you might think. The market is volatile. And the economy right now is as fickle as it's ever been. You can't bank on a economy run, right? You can't bank on the fact that this industry is going to go up parabolically. It might, but it's not going to be this industry. And I will promise you, as Duff says, you are going to miss the days of not having to worry about where the money is coming from. But that's only in the beginning. When you get to a certain point, your business is thriving, you don't worry about that stuff anymore, because economic boom or economic bust, you have reliable clientele, you have reliable business. It's why we've decided to change some of the structure, because we need to push for more reliable business. Reliability is the only thing that matters. Nothing else matters other than reliability. Because if you can't rely on customers to keep coming back, and you can't rely on new business to find you, you don't have a business. You have a hobby that might be self-sustaining, but you don't have a business. Now, a business does not need to have employees. We don't have employees. We have contractors, independent contractors. We have people that work for us part-time on a project-to-project basis, and we pay them on a project-to-project basis. If they're not available, they don't do the project. If they're available, they take the project. It is simple, but there are rules, regulations, and laws that I have to abide by to make sure that they don't get classified as employees. Now, that means they have to deal with their own taxes, but they have some fun abilities for tax write-offs and things like that. And I care not to get into that because I am not an accountant and I am not smart enough to do that. I have an accountant because I am not smart enough to get into that. And he's the one that kind of helps us make sure that, we don't screw things up. I will say, though, when you can sit there and say, we are fine financially, we'll make it through, but this client could really use a hand, or, this person could use a hand, that is huge. That is huge when you're able to extend a helping hand that you might not have been able to previously. Being able to help others, even though it's not technically your responsibility, can be incredibly rewarding and can actually lead to more positive than negative. But understand that if all you do is help others and you don't bring in money, you're not a business, you're a charity. And I would argue that quite a few of the large charities out there are more businesses than they are charities. I'm looking at you, Susan G. Komen. You put less than 10% of the money you bring in into doing actual research for breast cancer. And honestly, that's deplorable. I don't mind that there are staff that take salaries. Heck, I don't mind that your CEOs and CFOs, that your C-suite executives make good money. I don't mind that. I mind when you spend all of this money advertising and then you spend basically none of it, sub 10% of it, actually doing research to cure breast cancer. It feels like you're not a charity, because I give out more than 10% of my income for the business in, helping other people. And I do it by the way of doing discounts and that kind of thing, right? We have a lot of value that we provide. But we have this issue. You can't always feel good about the projects. You can't. You're going to have projects that just suck because they pay really, really well. My house will smell like a moonshine facility in probably 8 to 10 hours as I go to take this next resin print off. I have been through 11, well, I'm technically on my 12th bottle of resin for a project that we've been on for 1 week. It's a lot of effort. It means a lot of nights where I'm not getting a lot of sleep, but this is a big project. Actually, you can tell. So when I'm under a lot of stress, for some reason, this eye gets infected. I don't know why, but it does. So my left eye, this is my left eye, you'll see it get infected, and you can actually see it coming in. I don't know why it occurs, but it always occurs when I'm under a ton of stress. Maybe it's because I don't sleep well. I don't know. But it is always my left eye. It is never my right eye. And I've never been able to figure it out. But, that's how you guys can kind of tell if I'm under a lot of stress without being in our Discord and seeing all the crazy stuff that I'm working on. Which, if you do want to join, you can join via the links down below. Like the stream if you haven't, if you are watching live, and subscribe if you don't mind, because it's free. It doesn't cost you anything. So, yeah. I clipped that for some reason. I probably shouldn't have. Texatech is asking why no air scrubbers to prevent the moonshine smell. The amount of air scrubber... I have an air scrubber. I have a commercial grade air scrubber. It's not enough. It is not enough. I have there's 2 gallons in the bucket currently of denatured alcohol. So it's ethanol. There's just no way. There is no way. I've tried. I would do it outside, but that means I have to bring resin parts outside. I could do it in my garage. My garage is not really set up for this kind of work, and there's really no other place for me to do it. So, just kind of figure it out as we go. Part of the problem, though, with making money is that it isn't as straightforward as you think. It's just not. And you will run into some real problems if you're not preparing properly from the beginning. Mr. Tiburum says, general ventilation is the way to do it if you don't have a fume hood. I actually do have a fume hood. It's not hooked up. This is a house. I can't just put a fume hood in here. I don't have the space for it either. It's huge. It's a pharmaceutical grade fume hood designed for pharmacy work. There is no general ventilation in this room, and I cannot open windows because resin. You can see there are windows behind me. There are no windows in front of me, and the resin printers are right here. So I'd have to run ducts across the room. I'm not doing any of that crap. It is easier for me to let the air scrubber do its work and at least know that I have all of my teeth. So if we do get somebody coming by, like, I smell a lot of booze in here, I've got all my teeth. I'm clearly not making moonshine. It's fine. I buy enough ethyl alcohol locally that people are like, what do you use all this stuff for? It's weird. But there's unbilled for time. Dave Randolph talked a lot about this in that group, where he said, you might have a project that's maybe 10 hours in CAD. Let's call it 20 hours in CAD. 20 hours in CAD. But you only build for 10. You can't go back and build more because maybe you're not the fastest, so you have a higher billable hour rate, but you tell the client it's less hours. Does that make sense? That way, when you do get something that's good, you end up working more, so you just take a less rate per hour. But then you might not account for things like support removal. For this piece that I'm working on, it's the supporting of the parts. Some of these parts are huge. I have an Elegoo Jupiter, and I just bought another Elegoo Jupiter because they're currently on sale, which is awesome. I'm really happy that they're on sale. Those machines, I have a part that is fundamentally too large to fit in a Jupiter. It is going to have a small portion of it cut off. It's not an issue for the project. I've already confirmed it, but it is within 1 millimeter of every single dimension of an Elegoo Jupiter. And while I could look at bigger resin printers, they are 4 to 5x, if not more, the cost of the Jupiter. And I had to sit here and say, well, I have to front the money for all of that. I'll get paid on the back end. That's no big deal. But I have to float this money for at least a month until we get paid. And I can't afford to spend $10,000 on resin printers. And that might be 1 or 2 if I'm lucky. What I can do is afford to spend $800 and $900 on a few of them and take a little bit of extra time to make sure that I can make build plates that are really, really well done with high density components on it so that we have minimal waste and minimal, downtime. I've ran my Jupiter pretty much 24/7 since we got it, and I'm very happy with it. So there you go. I mean, I bought that, and it's been a great machine. The build plate objectively sucks. The leveling system objectively sucks. But the machine itself has actually been pretty good. Have not had any single print failures. And we're going to get into that at a later date. We're going to do a post-mortem video on this project and kind of talk about it in as broad terms as I can, I hope. It might end up actually just being a live stream where we do a podcast on it. We talk about the project and I go through the specifics about it so we can discuss it. I don't know. I'll have to think about it. But looking forward toward business movement and getting that initial jump. If you are living alone or you living with your parents and you still have health insurance, the jump is easier to take. There's less of a risk. And we joked that there are 2 best times in your life to jump and take a risk to be an entrepreneur. 1 is when you are under 26 and you're living with your parents. 2 is when you are married and have a significant other that gets health insurance through their day job. And I guess the 3rd would be that you run a business secretly on the back end and you don't tell anybody and you do it from 5 to 9 when you're not working on your 9 to 5, right? So you have a day job that pays you. That way you have a guaranteed source of income. And we've talked about it with plenty of people before. And I think I've even talked about it here on the podcast that it's not a bad idea when you're first starting off to get a part-time job. A part-time job can help make sure that you have enough money to survive. I've talked about it before as well that Chipotle has actually been one of the places that I would look at recommending. It's food service, which is not normally a reason that I would recommend it. But Chipotle gives out free food to their staff, even their part-timers. And that means you have 1 less expense to worry about. If you can get enough food that when you're not working there, you can continue to eat that food, you can remove a food expense from your life. And if you haven't noticed, food ain't cheap. And while Chipotle is certainly not the most healthy food on the planet, it is certainly one of the better, let's go with quote unquote faster food businesses. Fun fact, it is owned by McDonald's. So you can hate yourself now. Uh, but yes, there is a lot to look at where there are unknowns that you can't plan for. You can try, but you can't plan for that you're going to try to do a paid Google ad campaign that doesn't work, or you did something wrong and it goes to the wrong people. You can plan to say, oh, I need $100,000 to do this business. You probably need $200,000. You need a lot more than you think. And it's not as easy as you might think. But I will say, to wake up and be able to say that the only boss that I have is this cat, and technically my clients, and if I don't want to work today, I technically don't have to. I probably should, but I don't have to. That is a big benefit. I can go to Smurf and tell my clients, hey, I'm going to be out of the country for X amount of time. Too bad. I'm gone. They might be okay with it. They might not be. But we're doing it. And I don't know if I've talked about it before, but we're doing it because it's sponsored. We actually have a sponsor for the trip. It's Print and Solid. Print and Solid is sponsoring us to go to Smurf. Now, that has nothing to do with the videos that we shot with them. That was all because I wanted to do it and begged Dave to let me do it. But yeah, Print and Solid is sending us to Smurf. It's pretty cool. Oh, okay. I was wrong. Mr. M. Don says McDonald's does not own Chipotle. They became a major investor in 1998, but they fully divested in 2006. Excuse me. I did not know that. Thank you for the correction, Mr. M. Don. I appreciate it. But I am incredibly thankful for opportunities like that, because I would never be able to travel internationally. We're not at a point where in the channel we can afford that. We're not at a point in the business where I can be gone for X amount of time without some guaranteed income or revenue to make up for it. David is truly an awesome guy. And having spent a lot of time with him, having talked to him, probably not talked to him enough. I probably need to reach out to him more often, because he really is a wealth of knowledge. Someone that seems to be willing to share it with anyone who has the guts to ask. And I'll tell you, that's a big deal in this industry. You know, I asked if we could film how filament is made. I wanted to film PETG, but he said, how about we just film Elixir? I'm like, yes, 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 yes. Yes, Elixir, yes. And he said, you know what? I'm going to give you all of the run. I'm going to give you every spool. And then you can give it away. As much as you want, give it away. I kept some because I'm going to give it to some of our staff. But the rest of it we gave away. And that is super cool. Because he didn't need to do that. He had no obligation to do that. He just did. Because he likes giving back to the community. I mean, heck, he donated $500 during the stream yesterday just so we could make Shane suffer. He's good people. He makes Shane suffer. No, I'm joking. I'm going to see Shane here relatively soon, so I have to be nice to Shane. But I will say that you do have to make sure that you're not just expecting income from one stream. A single stream revenue source is a great way to lose your business. Let's go through the revenue streams that we have here at 3D Musketeers. 3D design, 3D printing, 3D scanning, consulting. We have the work we do with inventors, which I separate from consulting because it is very specific, versus consulting, which is very broad. Printer repair, YouTube, which includes, video, sponsorships, that kind of thing. And I'm going to go off and say that there's the fan funding part of it as well, where people can give us money. So we have 8 separate, distinct revenue streams here at 3D Musketeers that bring in revenue. Most of the time. The YouTube channel, historically, has actually been a loss leader for us, where even with fan funding, Patreon, PayPal, YouTube channel members, linked below, of course, it is not net profitable for us. Now, we are in Q4, which is historically the best quarter for being a content creator because companies are doing huge ad spends coming up to the holiday season. So our CPM, which is cost per milli, and RPM, which is revenue per milli, that is the amount of money that we make per 1,000 views, is up drastically. But Q1 of next year, she gonna fall right back to normal every single time. So we don't bank on the numbers that we get during Q4 on YouTube to be something that is relatable long term, because it's not. Numbers will fall in January. There is nothing that we can do to change that. That is consistent across all content creation, period. Anton is asking, how bad is YouTube for content creators? I don't think YouTube is bad. I think that the algorithm does often push you to do things that you might not want to do, right? There was a big push for videos to be longer because, long form content keep people watching. Then there was the big push for short form content, the vertical video, YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, TikTok, and all that. Now the push is going for long format videos that are short. YouTube just dropped its ability for the amount of time. So to get a mid-roll ad, that is an ad in the middle of the video or it's somewhere in the middle of the video, used to be 10 minutes. Then it was 8. Then it was 6. Now it is 5 minutes. So that means a 5-minute video, a video that is 5 minutes long, I can run an ad in the middle of. And the idea is that because people's attention spans are dropping, because we're used to this dopamine kick of short form content, if I can give you that information very fast, I can get another ad or 2 in there, I am going to make more money, and the percentage of watch time goes up. The amount of metrics that you get as a content creator are kind of ridiculous. And I don't want to go too deep into it because it's generally considered bad practice to do it. But the content is the content is different than what you might think. So similar to how your normal business would be able to track metrics, you can track metrics in YouTube as well. In fact, I can track better metrics in YouTube than I can in my own business. But sometimes that is more data than you actually need, and that data becomes confusing. I want to get into the data because I think the data is really important, and too much of it is a real problem. Data is something that if you're not using it to make decisions, you're not making the right decisions. If you are looking at data and making a decision based on it, and you're looking at just the current data, you're not making the right decision. You need to look at past data, present data, and potential future data. If you're not taking into account what has worked, what is working, what hasn't worked, and where you believe the market is going based on what has worked, what hasn't worked, and what is working, then making the decisions that you are making is no better than closing your eyes and throwing a dart at a dartboard. Could you hit it? You could. Could you get a bullseye? You could. But the chances of you hitting a bullseye blindfolded drop drastically compared to the chances of you getting a bullseye without that blindfold. Do you still suck at darts? Probably. You probably still suck at darts. But with practice, you get better. And you can make that perfect game once you know, and you can make those decisions based on the data. When it comes to content, I always keep the metrics for our channel open. I have 2 computer screens. This screen here has the YouTube analytics. That is the page that it is always on. This one is normally one of my email accounts. It's Twitter. There's a lot of tabs, but the page that is normally the one that I am looking at, it's normally email. I have Outlook for company email that I normally use as well. And I track things. We look at what works. We look at what doesn't. It is not as easy as you think. The decisions to make moves, especially when you're small, it is some of the most anxiety-inducing things in my life. Like, I bought another scanner. There's a story to it. I'm going to film a video about it, but I won't be able to tell you guys the story until it fully plays itself out. But there's a story to it. And when that story started to unfold, my heart sank. Because I thought I got the deal of a lifetime. And I might. I don't know yet. But I also might have just really screwed myself. We'll see. Making those decisions to spend capital, money, real money, is harder than it needs to be, right? When we got the money for Smurf, it was anxiety inducing. When you get money from somebody and all they say is just do what you do. I like what you do. Do what you do. It's tough because the deliverables are not well defined. Part of business is making sure that your deliverables are well defined. Because if your deliverables aren't well defined, you're going to fail at delivering. And I've done it. It's gonna happen. It's a lot. And you'll find that with your first customers, especially if you're doing B2B, and it's a relatively new business that you're working with as well, their needs might not be well understood. And you'll make mistakes. But if you make more wins than you make mistakes, you come out on top. And that's part of making money, is losing it. Because if all you do is make money, you clearly are just getting lucky. You're clearly just getting lucky. Seven Bravo Pro says, come up to GA and make a Magneto X video totally free of charge. Well, it's not. There's a lot involved with making videos these days. It's normal. And Dawn, I can see you. All you gotta do is reach out, buddy. I got time to talk to people. Just DM me. You obviously know how to DM me. DM me. We'll set up a time to chat. It's fine. I can fit it into my schedule. Because part of why I'm willing to do what I do is because I love it. It doesn't pay me. I don't take a paycheck. Which is funny that I was put on Makers Making a Living, because I'm not actually making a living from this. I am burning my savings. And when I buy expensive briefcases like this, it's difficult. It's a little difficult. And if you were paying attention to the video, you saw what scanner I bought. It is not as easy as you might think it is. Right? a good client can turn into a bad client instantly. You can have a bad client turn into a good client instantly. You can have clients that evaporate. We've had clients in the middle of a project just stop responding. We had one that just stopped responding. And then, as you do, you check in on your competition, see how they're doing. We see that 2 weeks prior, that same person left a review with them saying that they helped them with their project. So instead of telling us they were going to somebody else, they just left and nothing happened. It sucks, but that's life sometimes. Business is not as straightforward as you might want it to be. And yep, that sucks, but it's life. And if business is straightforward for you, God bless you, because you have fit into a market that makes a lot of sense for you, and don't freaking change it. Just don't freaking change it. Now, if the client pays and never comes back, I don't give a damn. I got the money. We're great. We're set. We're golden. And in fact, we're building a business model that actually benefits from this. It's a class system, right? Where you can pay for classes called the Making Awesome Academy, which I think I accidentally said that this was the Making Awesome Academy on a podcast a couple of weeks back. Anyways, it's called the Making Awesome Academy. And when I get back from Europe, that is part of what we're going to be doing. We're going to be really moving forward on it. I missed another winter basically for the politicians, so I can back burner that for a couple of months while I work on more content related stuff for the channel. But there is a lot of minutia in business that will catch you if you don't really know what you're doing. And it's really a problem. Carl Fenton is asking how long I'm in the UK for. We are not disclosing that. It's a security thing. I'm not going to tell you guys when you guys will know when I'm leaving and when we get back. Because we're going to film videos. But yeah. We're not doing the stream next week because of Thanksgiving. And then the week after that's going to be Smurf. So, we will be at Smurf both days. So yeah, that'll be a thing. And I think Amber wants to see a show that Monday. So I think we're going to go see a show in London that Monday. But that's the only things I'm really willing to disclose at this time. All right, back into it. Yeah, it's a security thing for me. I'm sorry. It's a security thing. Am I going to do a tour video of the Prusa factory? That is a great question. I'll let you know. That's all that I can really discuss on that. All right. If we look at some of the pain points, the ones that were big pain points, shipping was one of them. Ellie had a cocoa press get stolen. Insurance won't pay for it. Joel talks about when he was working with Dr. Disillusion. And a real set piece from his movie from the late 80s was just lost in FedEx forever. And there's nothing that you can do. There's nothing that you can do. That is a huge problem. And I talked about how we used to handle it. We used to have GPS trackers that we would put in boxes. Back in the day, we used ones made for dogs that would track your dog should your dog run away. Like if you have a dog that runs away, maybe, train your dog. But, we used those trackers. It was $40 a month to have the cellular plan on it, and I could cancel it at any time. So when we had a project that we wanted to track, we would turn on the cell plan, we'd put the tracker in the box. And in fact, the tracker would be in a bag that already had a label on it. And it would just say, drop me at the post office. So all these people had to do is when they got the box, take the bag, drop it at the post office, and it would come back to me. Now you can get Apple Air tags, Samsung has their own Galaxy tags, and it looks like Google's going to be coming out with tags that work on both networks, which would be the ones that I would recommend. That you can track boxes with. It's a real problem. Because you don't have control over it. Your clients think you do. And because you don't have control over it, if you don't insure things properly, and it does get lost forever, you're screwed. A great thing that I recommend, if you are shipping something that is high value, not only insure it properly. We use UPS Capital. That is a dedicated insurance branch, a dedicated insurance branch of UPS. I love working with UPS Capital because it is an actual insurance policy. It comes with a certificate of insurance, level of insurance policy. Now, I'm only doing that if the package that we're sending is worth more than $10,000. And it's not an uncommon thing for us. When I buy scanners, they're normally worth more than 10 grand. So I put insurance plans on them. And they're like $500 for a shipment. But if there is ever a problem, no matter what, the plan pays out. There's no questions asked. Because I get the boxes packed at UPS. And that costs me money. I do everything through them so that I know that if there is even a scratch on this thing, it is taken care of. And that is unreasonably useful for me as a business owner to have that peace of mind. But if the project is like less than a couple $1,000s, I'm not going to bother. I'm not going to bother doing it. Because the amount of time it's going to take me to deal with the insurance company is more BS than just redoing the project. The only downside you have is you've now missed a deadline. And if you miss enough deadlines, you kind of get known for missing deadlines. We are known for the Hail Mary company. We are one of the companies that will take your emergency and make it ours. The fact that I am working, I woke up at 1. I went to bed early because I only had 2 hours of sleep the night before. But I woke up at 1 o'clock in the morning to do some work here. Means that I give a damn, right? There are pieces behind me. There's a bucket back there. I don't know if you guys can see the bucket, but it's a trash can. That is a curing station. The parts that I'm doing barely fit into that curing station. Just gonna say. And there becomes a point where we will do that kind of thing. We charge for it, but we will do that kind of thing. The reason that we do it is because when you have an emergency, there is nothing more steadying than somebody else saying, I got you, let me help you. When you ask somebody for help in an emergency and they say, I got you, that feels really, really good. It feels really good because you feel comfortable. It feels normal to you, where it really wouldn't otherwise. We take that and we say, I know what that feels like. I know what it feels like for a company not to care. So I want to be the company that does care. So we do. You can do that too. I am sure there are companies around you that need work and they need it yesterday. And if you can be the person that gets stuff done yesterday, then you can charge for it. And you better damn well charge for it. Because if you don't, somebody else will. Also, Bit on Sound says, how the hell do you lose a set piece? It was small. It was only about this big. It was not a big set piece, but it was the stairs they used. It was filmed very... Joel did a whole video on it. Go find Joel's video on it. Joel did a whole video on this thing. You can see it's not a big set piece. So yeah, don't worry about it. shipping is one of those things that it's a funny one, where it's why we don't provide tracking numbers. If people want them, I will provide them. But because people expect next day delivery, we don't provide them. That's a lot of our clients anyways don't care. Hell, a lot of them, we just use their account so they can see it in their account. And locally, a lot of times it is next day delivery. But when you look at nationally or internationally, next day delivery starts to get very expensive, and it's not something that you normally take on. If you need to do it, oftentimes, if you live near a hub for Southwest, you can get on an airplane and get the pieces to where they need to go for less. And then you get to go travel somewhere. We've done it before. There have been times where I don't trust insurance, and even if insurance did cover the damage, the parts wouldn't be there on time. Heck, the parts I'm doing right now, I'm going to drive them to the client on Tuesday because I don't trust shipping to do it for me. I'm going to drive them down to the client on Tuesday because that is the best thing to do here. It is the right thing to do. I'm not billing extra for it, but I also don't have the headache and the anxiety of trusting a company that isn't known for shipping. These shipping companies, they're logistics companies. Amazon is not an online marketplace. It is a logistics company. And if you can't trust those logistics companies and you have the ability to hand deliver something, one, way cooler to be able to hand deliver, right? It is a much better experience for the client. Two, if it's a cool client, get to go hang out with them for a little bit and see their space, which for this client, super cool space. But then three, it lets you have an emotional connection with this company and with the person who maybe you only worked on the phone, maybe via email, maybe you met in person once. But if it's an emergency job, you probably never met in person. And if you can be bringing a box full of 3D printed Xanax, basically, anxiety reducers. I should probably just go with benzos as a whole. Then you control the narrative and you say, here you go. I know you really needed this. I will send the bill later. I want you guys to make sure that you get the project done. That is some of the most rewarding things that you can do. It's pretty cool. Doug Woodchuck says counter-to-counter air shipping on airline, like buy an airplane ticket for your stuff. We have done that before. I don't like it because it normally requires somebody to go to the terminals and all that to pick it up. It's not that easy. I would rather just carry it myself, which, yes, does take up my time. And when we do have to do things via planes, I do charge quite a bit for it, but it's often that it makes sense to do it. It's safer, right? Making money is not straightforward. It never has been. It never will be. Yes, if your profit and your revenue is higher than your expenses, then you are making money. That is a fact. But as a business, there's expenses that come up randomly. Things like websites, hosting. You have a Google Drive. That's a once a year thing. What about taxes? That's twice a year. You have your personal taxes and your business taxes. You have tax time when you have to pay the taxes. I have to pay an accountant to do my taxes. Then I got to pay the IRS for my taxes. It's a fun one. It's a fun one. It's not a fun one. I don't like it. It's not fun. It's a lot of effort. But it is part of business. These are the hidden expenses that you don't see. And I kind of feel for Joel. Joel has an entire family. A wife. At least one kid. I don't know how many kids Joel has. It's at least one. That he has to support with 3D printing nerd. I don't know if his wife works. And insurance is one of those, right? Joel's daughter has special needs. She has a disorder. She's talked about it on his channel. I'm not going to get into it, but that has expensive medical bills associated with it because America. Hell, getting injured. If you get hurt, not only are you dealing with your insurance, you now have time outside of your company. You have to account for lost time in projects. It's just like how your 3D printers will work perfectly until you need them to work perfectly, then they always get upset. Your body's the same way. It'll work perfectly until you need it to work perfectly, then it gets upset. When we look at money, it's not like making a lemonade stand and selling lemonade for $1 a glass. It's not like you have this, I need this, here's money, give me that. It's not. It is, there's so many complicated minutia things that aren't exactly obvious to the real, actual consumer. And it's hard to talk about them because they're going to be different for everybody. I live in a state where we don't have state income tax. Florida, Tennessee, and I think Arizona. There might be a few others, but there are a few states without state income tax. So I don't pay any tax to my state outside of sales tax. There are states that have also state income tax. That's another tax that you have to pay for. That's more money coming out of your pocket for money that you make. It is, it's challenging. Those are the things that you can't get away from. As I talked about on the 1440 Maker stream, the famous Al Capone, the OG gangster, right? He was jailed, put in prison, not for murder, not for theft, well, not theft from individuals, not for robbery, not for a RICO charge. He was put in prison for tax evasion. It was easier for the federal government to try and convict one of the most career criminals that ever existed. One of the most famous American gangsters. Well, Italian, but lived in America. It was easier for them to convict him on tax evasion than it was on the myriad of other things that they knew. And the thing is, it's because tax evasion is very obvious. It is very obvious. And as Build on Sound says, there's a reason a lot of animators make jokes about their characters not screwing around with the IRS. Exactly. The Joker is one that makes a lot of jokes about not messing with the IRS. How he'll mess with Batman, but he ain't messing with the IRS. Because, yeah, they'll jail you. And they'll put you in jail for a long time. And as Dave Randolph has said, 80% of the dreaded A word, the audits, 80% of them actually result in companies getting a refund rather than the other way around. It's those other 20% are the ones that you hear about often. But see, the thing about an audit is that unless you have an accountant, and if you don't have an accountant, if your system is not really, really well done, they are going to basically shut down your business for months as they comb through every bit of paperwork that has ever existed for your company. That is a huge, huge thing that you need to keep in mind. You have to make sure that you keep in mind that everything you do needs to be properly documented. Do you go out to eat and it's a business dinner? Take a picture of that receipt. Submit that receipt. Or, only be able to deduct a certain amount. And that kind of thing can easily slip you up. Watch Wolf of Wall Street. There's just some great things in there with the IRS and his accountant and all of that. And as Duff says, a good accountant and a lawyer is always good to have. They are necessities for business. Even if you're a small business, if I say, can you do a Schedule K1 and can you do a 1095A? I think that's the tax form for a business. And if you don't immediately say yes, go get an accountant. Go get a bookkeeper. Go get somebody to help you. My accountant is also my bookkeeper. It is a great thing that I have. Because I know I will screw it up. And I don't keep good enough track of things like that to be able to survive an audit. My accountant does. It's his job, and he gets paid for it. It's not mine. There's a value to knowing when to delegate in business. And if you are not an expert in the industry, whatever that industry might be, right? Consult somebody that is. The expenses involved in consulting a expert will grossly outweigh the damages that would be caused by not going to that expert in the first place. And while, yes, as Max says, jail is free room and board, 3 hots and a cot, if you will. And, you know, honestly, there are people out there that will just get themselves into trouble so they have a place to sleep at night. It is not something that you should look at as a small business owner as something that, you know, actually is a viable option for you. I know a lot of you expected some sort of podcast that was all about, like, how to make money, how to do it right. And the answer is there isn't a way to do it right. A way that works for you might not work for me. A way that works for me might not work for you. I believe that ultimately you have to find a market that works for you. I don't live in the Midwest. There's not a lot of farming out in Florida anymore, right? Florida used to be known for its citrus. We've had citrus canker come through, a lot of it, and it's killed a lot of the groves. So citrus is not a need. It's not a big export for Florida as it used to be. We see other industries growing. But if you live somewhere in the Midwest where there's a lot of corn, potatoes, other things that are grown in the dirt, I don't know, wheat. I know corn's one of the big exports of the Midwest. Those farmers always need stuff. They always need stuff. And if you can get past the good old boy, buddy, you got a business model that is the right to print money. If you can easily get to the right people, and that is understand the market that you want to deal with the most, that is how you ultimately succeed as a business owner. That is where money is made. Money is made by solving problems. That's all we are. We're solutions providers. That's all you are. You're a solutions provider. You provide a solution to your boss. I provide a solution to my boss. I provide a solution to my clients. My team, our team, provides solutions to people worldwide. That is how you make money. You provide solutions to problems. Thomas with the 5 gifted members. Thank you very much. We see Max got one. Raptor Drone got one. Aaron Rini King. Sure, probably screwed that up. Carl Fenton got one. And Darius Adams got a membership. So thank you, Thomas. Thank you for donating those memberships. That is greatly appreciated. I love that. That's great. Thank you. That goes a long way because it allows people to see a lot of the really awesome videos that are coming out. We are going to start dropping a lot of the behind-the-scenes content from the East Coast Rap Festival, and it is going to be for PayPal, Patreon, YouTube channel members. It is going to be for paid members only. So if you want to see some of that stuff, you got to make sure that you're a paying member at the $5 tier and higher. That is how, well, I guess, no, YouTube is $2.99. See, YouTube is, I think, is it $2.99? I honestly don't remember. I don't know, man. YouTube, you can get it at any tier. Patreon is $5 tier and higher, and there's only one tier in PayPal. It's a $10 tier that gets you into our Discord. The Discord is the best place to be, though. I'm telling you. It's a lot of fun. We have a great group of people, and we would love for you to come in. Doesn't matter, male, female, anything in between, none of the above. We have a really awesome community of people, and we'd love to have you join us. So, it'd be fun. But at the end of the day, if you're not providing a solution to a problem, you don't actually have a business. You have a hobby. You are solving a problem as a hobbyist. You're solving your downtime and turning it into a hobby. But it's not exactly something that will pay. If you are going to your local craft fair, you have a hobby. The business is where you start looking at things from a technical perspective and say, I do this because it makes me money, not because I like doing it. If you like doing it and it makes you money, congratulations, you have a passion. But a lot of people don't like their day jobs, and it's because they do them because they make them enough money to survive, hopefully. When you love what you do, the saying is you never work a day in your life, and I completely disagree. I love what I do, but I work every single day of my life. I don't get vacation. When we're going overseas, spoiler alert, we're not just going for Saturday and Sunday. We are going for a little bit longer than that. While I will have days that are going to be off days, I'm still going to be wearing a camera. I'm still going to be mic'd up. Amber's still going to be mic'd up. We're going to be bringing you guys where we go. Because that's what we are. We are content creators. That is what life is for me. And that is work. If you take the thing that you love doing in your free time and you try to turn it into something that makes you money, you have a business. It's no longer a hobby. I don't find myself 3D printing for myself anymore. One, because I don't generally need it. But two, it feels like work. Now, if Amber brings a problem to me to solve, great. I found a thing on Thingable. God, Grant, you put that one real blurbed up. I found a thing on printables. This fits the DJI Osmo Pocket, which are the kind of the B cameras that we use, the little tiny stick cameras. That makes it easier to hold because they're not all that comfortable. This is all a flexible TPU. So I made a bunch of these for the trip so that we can be a little more comfortable if we're not just using POV and gimbals and all that when we do a more run and gun setup and not the hardcore cams. The difference is that I enjoy what I do. I love what I do, and I can't really imagine myself not doing content creation anymore. I love it. It's a ton of fun. It is freaking exhausting. I have a bunch of videos that we need to film before we leave so that our content schedule remains the same. But it is still something that I enjoy. And turning what you enjoy into something that makes you money might take the fun out of it. And Ellie talked about it, Dave talked about it, Joel talked about it, how it is fun to make videos. It is not fun to make videos when it is your only source of income. Because you now must do things that will convert. You must do videos that have crazy, ridiculous titles and ridiculous thumbnails, and you must do your research, because it's not just for fun. The video can be for fun, but the advertising campaign for it, the thumbnail, the title, and the changing of the thumbnail and the title must be something that is done from a level of data. Because if it isn't, then you're not really doing it right. You're just kind of guessing and hope you go viral. It is not easy. I will never say that starting your own business is easy, because it is not. It is not easy. It is difficult. It is challenging. But like a lot of you said, is the most rewarding thing that you can do. Your business will be different from mine. The best thing that you can do is look for what works by you. Look for what makes sense. Look for what matters. Look for what really is your vibe, and go after that. Do you have a passion outside of making? If you can find a way to serve that passion as a maker, as a professional maker, you have a massive opportunity to make money, especially if you're already known in that passion as a thought leader. It's why we see a lot of these big name, like, talkers, the Grant Cardones of the world, not the Grant Posners, the Grant Cardones of the world, that will sell a book. Because it's not the talk that makes them the money. They make good money at the talk. They make more money on the book sales. Because the book they wrote once. Now all they have to do is sell a crap load of copies. We see content creators, one that I watch that I enjoy, Joshua Weissman, puts out a cookbook. I buy that cookbook because it's a good cookbook. He will make more money from me by buying that cookbook than he will ever make from me as a viewer. And what does he do? He does an entire advertising campaign for that book in his videos. So the advertising for him, he can actually bill that advertising back to his company, but it doesn't cost him much of anything extra because it's his book. But that's why we're looking at merch. It's why we're looking at all these different things to provide extra value, because there's an easier way for us to make money. The average view on YouTube is not worth a ton. Not even a penny. Actually, no, it's worth about 1.7 cents right now for me. Your view is worth roughly 1.7 cents. Giving us $1 a month on Patreon could actually make more money for the company and me than you watching the videos. And that's kind of crazy. And it's why companies do this. It's why brands do this. And it's why we are moving forward with merch. In fact, I made another merch order because I wanted to give some shirts out to my parents. But this is the brand that we went with. The printing is different, which is interesting. I might have to get more of them made. But this is a hoodie. It's a hoodie. I'm only doing this because it's going to be cold as crap overseas. And if I can put a long cat on a hoodie, which is funny because the long cat's actually shorter on the hoodie because of the pockets on the hoodie than it is on the t-shirts. But we are moving forward with merch because we have a brand. It's cool. It's my cat. And there's a whole business model behind it. But I just spent $500 in samples. $500 in samples. And if the samples aren't good, they don't get worn. It's weird. But yes, there are shirts are coming. Q1 of 2024 is when we will be launching our clothing. I had to build a website and stuff for it. Because there is a lot of things that go into it. And like you might say, well, Grant, that's a lot of money to spend on merch. It is. It is a ton of money to spend on merch. But I have to make sure that the products that we are buying, that you guys might be buying, are going to last. That the printing is not just going to fall off. That it's going to, last through a bunch of wash cycles, even if you don't know how to wash them properly. I don't want someone to spend $20 to $25 on a piece of clothing for it to only fall apart. That's stupid. We're not going to do that. That's why I spend the money. I spend the money so that I know that the clothing is not going to immediately turn into a waste of money. Because we bake quality products here. And if we are going to be outsourcing work to somebody else, which I'm not doing the direct-to-garment printing in-house, I have to make sure the quality is good, consistent, and it is the same all the time. Because any inconsistency in that means inconsistency for you guys. And inconsistency means upset customers. And upset customers mean problems that you have to deal with. It's why we've talked about having the same printers, right? If you run a print farm, use the same machines because it is consistent. It is the same thing that you expect. And if those machines are a pain in the ass, get different machines. You want to make sure that the quality is consistent across whatever it is that you're doing. Because if you have a difference of quality, it will directly impact your business moving forward. So what can you do to make a ton of money? Great question. I'll let you know when I do it. I mean, really, if you want to make a ton of money, you take advantage of people. If you want to make a ton of money fast, you take advantage of others. All right, that's the easy way to do it. You lie, cheat, and steal your way to 100 grand, right? Build on Sound says sell feet pics. Well, I don't know. Maybe, I guess, if that's your thing, or if you have a market for it. And there is a whole market around the idea of, OnlyFans and that, but you have to be willing to go to a certain level, right? There's a certain moral and ethical line that people might have an issue crossing to make that money. Hell, Thomas says crypto bro, right? You could do that too. Those are moral and ethical lines that you have to ask yourself. Are you willing to hurt others to further yourself? If the answer is yes, please don't work with me. Please don't. I will actively, unfortunately, end up hurting myself to help others. I will go the extra mile. I will make sure that the project is perfect. And if it's not perfect, I will fix it. But that means that it's going to take longer for me to make money. Dave Randolph talked about how long he's been at Printed Solid. It's a long time. Printed Solid is not an overnight business. While it is now owned by Prussia Research, which is funny because I don't know if that technically means that Prussia is sponsoring us. I'm wearing Dave's merch, so I'm not wearing Prussia merch. But, whatever. That is still something that wasn't an overnight success. Heck, Dave talks about buying Polyalchemy Elixir, buying the name Elixir in the recipe, Thanksgiving Day. We were gonna do that video right the day before Thanksgiving, but it didn't work. It wasn't gonna fit my schedule, so it didn't work. Bit on Sound says I don't want to be super rich. I just want to make enough so that I don't have to worry about everything every day. I feel that. I want to be wealthy enough to where I can see people that need help, people that might be begging, people that might be living in a tent, and be able to make their day a little bit better, to be able to give them what would be life-changing money for someone that might be down and out, but it wouldn't be life-changing money for me. That's where I want to be. I want to be the very best, like no one ever... No. I want to be at a point where I can be philanthropic and it doesn't directly affect me. I want to be able to help others way more than I do now. I help a lot of people, but I can't give money. I'll give time, but I don't have any income, so I can't give money. I want to be at a point where I can afford to give money. That's where I want to be. Does that mean I have to be pretty wealthy? Yeah, it actually means I have to have a fair bit of money, right? You have to decide what that looks like for you. I want to make sure that if I ever have a family, if I ever start a family, that those kids can have a good life, that my family can have a good life, that if we needed to move, we could move, that I wouldn't be stuck working a dead-end job, that I wouldn't be stuck working in a dead-end business. You have to look at what your future would look like. You have to decide what makes sense. Do you have kids? Do you have a significant other? Do you have people that rely on you? Well, that means you might have to do more work to be able to have a business that pays for all of it. I will never tell you that this is an easy system. I will never tell you that starting your own business is the easiest thing you'll ever do. It is the hardest thing you will ever do and is one of the most rewarding things, but it is also one of the most stressful. It is one of the most anxiety-inducing. But you know what? I wake up every single day and say, you know what? Let's go make some cool stuff for people, no matter who they are. And I dig the hell out of it. There are unforeseen hurdles in business. Ones that you won't know until you've ran into them full head on. There are ones that I will not foresee, that I will hit head on, apply directly to forehead, and it will hurt me. Still. Hell, I will make mistakes that I've made before and be like, oh, you idiot, you've made this mistake before. You're an idiot. And only after maybe a few times of making that mistake will I realize the right way to do it. Don't be afraid of that failure, right? The way the market is going, 3D Musketeers is a service bureau alone, with nothing else, no scanning, no CAD, just making prints for people, would not be here. It wouldn't have been here 2 years ago. But 3D Musketeers, as a larger company, is totally fine. We ain't going anywhere. But it will be things like sponsors and big fun products that we get to talk about with cool companies that want us to film the work that we do for them. Those will be the ones that make us real money. Real money. And while, yes, the money from Printed Solid is not going to fully cover my expenses for the Europe trip, it's because I'm not going alone. If I was going alone, I could actually do the entire trip that I'm doing and still have money left over. And I figure we're going to have at least another $1,000+ in editing when we get back. Okay. But I'll tell you, it's one of the cheapest European trips I'm ever going to make. And all that was asked of me is that I do the same thing that I do. And that's a lot of confidence. It's a lot of confidence. Now, there's a contract. There's other things that are involved in this, but it is a different world, especially when it's something new. For me, getting paid to make content is something that I'm not used to yet. I'm not used to having sponsors, so it is still something that feels uneasy for me. Like we got some cash for the work that we did with East Coast Rep Rap Festival. And I only deposited the check yesterday because I felt bad. Nope, they're totally happy. I didn't hear from them, so I thought they weren't happy, so I never deposited the check. They're totally happy, they're just very busy. Great, deposited the check. Life is a little bit weird sometimes and will actively confuse you. I had to ask for help. I had to see, was I making the right decision? Was I doing things correctly? And if I wasn't, it's time to stop, reevaluate, and then continue. Failure is an ability for you to learn. I don't believe that full-on failure is an option for me. I believe that smaller mistakes are possible. I define failure and mistakes very differently. Failure to me is the doors are shut. We're not coming back. That's it. It's over. Grant has to find something else to do with his life because it's not this anymore. I don't know if I'll ever be able to fail in this. I think I'm too deep in it to be able to say I need to go another direction. But if you are too steadfast in your business and say that I'm not going to change, that will create failure for you faster than you could ever see it coming. The ability to modify your business, to adjust it to fit your modifying clients, right? Because your business is not going to serve the same people from day one to day end. It is going to have different people. No matter if it's B2B or B2C, business to business or business to consumer, it will have different people. Those different people will basically give you feedback, whether you realize it or not, that if you're paying attention, will give you the tips and tricks to better attain that market as a target audience. And if you don't want that market as a target audience, then you know exactly what to avoid. But if that is a market that you want as a target audience, listen to what your customers are telling you and be able to adjust your business to fit their needs. Because if you can't, I promise you, somebody else will. And it might not happen today, it might not happen tomorrow, it might not happen for a while, but it will happen. There's very little that you can do about it. But if you stay on top of your business, you make sure you pay your people well, you make sure to bill for your time accordingly, you make sure to communicate clearly with clients, customers, and quite frankly, everybody in your life, you will have a much higher chance at success. Success is never guaranteed. Success is rented. And the lease is due every day. Every single day, you got to renew that lease for success. And there are some days where you can't make that payment. There are some days where that next day that you get up, you got to work extra hard to pay back yesterday's default and the late fee for it. There are some days where you're not going to be able to sleep. There are some days where you don't want to sleep. There are going to be some days where you feel like that the world is falling apart around you and that you have nobody to talk to. It is weird that entrepreneurs often don't talk to other entrepreneurs. Guilty as charged. It is often that we don't reach out to others for help. Guilty as charged. Because a lot of us have been told that asking for help is a sign of weakness. And I'm here to tell you that it is not. And you can sit there and say, well, Grant, that's a lot of do as I say, not as I do. And you are absolutely right, it is. I have to do better. One of my things that I plan to do better in the new year is ask for help more often. I also need to keep in better contact with friends and family. I don't do a great job at it. Because I'm so busy, I work all the time. And by the time I'm done with my day, people are sound asleep. 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, nobody wants a phone call. Nobody wants a text message. My Discord knows this. They see me up working all the time. And if you want to hang out with other business owners, we have a few business owners in that Discord. $10 tier higher gets you there.
It is a lot of fun, but it's real, right? Last night was a tough night for me. I could not focus for the life of me. And I just at some point had to leave. I had to leave the chat because I couldn't focus. My brain was dead. I'm so burned out from this big project. But I love doing it, man. I wake up every day and I'm like, hell yeah, let's do the next part. Let's do the next part. Let's do the next part. It's so much fun. It was not always this easy. And it was not always this hard. There were times where it was much easier. There were times where it was much harder. Enjoy the good times, learn from the bad, and be able to understand that your business must change. If your business doesn't change, it is doomed to fail. Referrals will be some of the most valuable things that you can get as a maker. Those evangelists, if you will, for your business will be the ones that help you more than you can ever imagine. Customers that are willing to leave reviews. Ones that will be honest with you and say you're too cheap. Customers that will be real with you and say you're too expensive. Businesses that will be real with you and say you're not charging enough. Those are the ones that you need to keep. Come hell or high water. And those are the people that matter to you. Your customers can be your friends. They can be your enemies. They can be the things you hate or the things you love. Don't be the thing that they hate. Be the thing that they love. If you hate your customer base, it's time for a new one. If you love your customer base and they pay well, never let them go. You have the ability to change your life. You are the only one that has the ability to change your life. Not your friends, not your family, you. It is a tough jump to make, and it is one that I do not recommend doing until you have more than enough of a safety net below you. And if that safety net is a, part-time job working somewhere so that you can afford food, so that you can afford shelter, so that you can afford transportation, and then the days that you're not working are days that you can work for yourself, so be it. But I will tell you, just like maybe you've heard before, if you can't see to the bottom, don't jump in head first. Jumping in head first is a great way to get a head injury, and nobody wants those. Because those head injuries in business cost you your sanity, cost you all of your life savings. And they can find you on the corner, down and out, rather than you being the person that gets to change the life of someone that didn't have the success that you did. Gloating, bragging, showing off, it's worthless. Community, kindness, that's where you can set yourself apart. Sure, collecting and stealing people's data, ransomware, those are easy ways to make fast money. It's not good money. I'd rather work twice as hard for half the money, but keep my ethics, keep my morals, than work half as hard for twice the money and take advantage of others. You might agree, you might not. But I want to remind every one of you that you can actually do this if you want. And if you need help, I'm no expert, but I made a lot of mistakes. Made a lot of mistakes in my day. I'd be more than happy to help. I will give anybody 30 minutes of my time for free. I won't charge you a dime. If you need more than 30 minutes, we can talk. We can talk. It might be a consulting relationship. It might be that I like you and I want to give you an hour or whatever. We can talk. But I will give anybody that wants talk to me 30 minutes of my time. And you can book it right on my website. It's kind of crazy. I just want to help people. And if you are at the point where you think you are ready to take the plunge, but you're not sure, reach out. Hell, if you want to reach out and support, join the Discord. If you just want to reach out, website. It'd be nice to be supported. I will ask you to leave a Google review when we're done with our, free consultation. I think that's a fair trade. I think it's more than a fair trade. But that's it. That's all that I ask for. I ask that you tell about your experience for others. I ask that you do that. Because if you don't say it, who will? Value comes not just from what you bring, but what others bring for you. Your value is beyond just you. My value is more the cat than it is me. You guys love the cat. Hell, if I just put a cat cam up, y'all would watch that more than you'd watch me, probably. We are working on that. I have a plan. It involves a wall-mounted arm, but I have a plan. Grant has plans. That should also be like a red flag. I have a plan. It should be like a hold my beer red flag. But I want you guys to know that you're not alone in whatever struggles you're dealing with. That I've been there, done that, gotten the t-shirt. I've come out of it, or I'm coming out of it. Hell, I might be in it too. Your experiences will be different, but your hardships will likely be very similar. If you have people around you that have done this kind of thing before, ask them. I regret never talking to my uncle much about my business. I regret it every single day. He's no longer with us. He was an amazing entrepreneur. But I never really talked much about it because it didn't matter. It never mattered to me to talk about that. I just like spending time with him. I regret never interviewing him because his wisdom can't be shared with you guys. But you can't bring back the dead now. Give that a few years, maybe that'll change. But right now you can't. But yeah. There is a lot of opportunity out there. This industry is still very new to the vast majority of the public. I will tell you, if you don't have education in place, you better find somebody that does. Hi, I'm going to have education in place. You better find a way to educate, because that is going to be one of your biggest challenges as a maker that wants to make money. Educating your customers on what you do, how you do it, and why will be one of the biggest challenges that you have. But I believe in you and you can do it. You got this. Do we have any questions before we wrap up? I went over. I'm trying to keep these to 90 minutes, and I've gone 105. Do we have any questions before we wrap this up? Because otherwise, I think I'm going to wrap this one up. Remember that we are off for the next 2 weeks. We will likely be streaming from Smurf, but it won't be a podcast where we are going to be shaving my head. The next time you guys see me live back at my house, I'll be bald. That's kind of crazy. That's kind of freaking crazy. Yeah. You guys have anything? Thomas says keep going and raid Steve, but I'm not even certain. I don't even know how to do that. I'm not even certain how to yeah, I don't see an option to do that. I'm sorry. Anton says next time live will be at Smurf. Most likely, yes. Yeah, most likely next time live will be at Smurf. You will be able to watch me get my head shaved live on somebody's channel. Hopefully it's this one too. And if we're lucky, Sanjay Mortimer Foundation will be able to be a charity at that time. Thomas, I'm waiting to see that Bamboo Lab logo in your head. Hey, if they want to be the top donors and shave their logo into my head, by all means, they can do it. I don't care. I do not care. I want to raise as much money as I possibly can for a charity that I feel so incredibly passionate about. That charity exists to help makers like me. When I was starting out, neurodiverse, didn't really know what to do. They give advice. They give financial assistance. It's amazing. It is absolutely amazing. So, I'm going to check to see. Yeah, I don't see a way to raid, so. Yeah, I don't know how to do it, so we're not going to do it. Sorry, guys. I wish we could, but I don't see how to do it. All right, we'll wrap this one then. This has been episode 164 of the Making Awesome podcast. I will see you guys for the next Making Awesome podcast in 2 weeks. So, stay safe out there. Don't forget to call your loved ones. And as always, keep making awesome. And hey, if you can make a dime, make an awesome, turn that dime into $1. Your prices are probably too low. Take care.